What's up, Rons, and welcome to another episode of Pro Saints Talk. Our blood pressures have finally dropped to a level that it's safe to record and talk about the disappointing loss 2 weeks ago in the postseason, which was likely Drew Brees' last. But as always, we offer our optimistic outlook on what is most certainly still the prime of Sean Payton and Saints football. So sit back and turn up Pro Saints Talk.
Look at uptown people like yeah. People up in Britain like yeah. Mid-city folks like yeah. People downtown man yeah.
Where you at, Who-Dats? Pro Saints Talk back again in your eardrums after the fourth soul-crushing playoff loss in a row. Guys, it's just getting harder and harder to come back on and do, but we do it because we love y'all, and honestly, we need this release. We need to get these juices flowing and get them out of us. Otherwise, it's pent up. It's anxiety. We can't stand it. We got to get this out to the Rons. We got to be with the Rons on this one in solidarity at what's most likely a changing of the guard that, we'll get into a little bit later, but we're just happy to be back here recording live on Pro Saints Talk on a beautiful day here, beautiful Friday. Let's try to stay optimistic. George, how we living, baby?
We're lavish. And Ron, I know you're upset. I know a lot of the Saints fans and all the Rons are upset, but I'm really not that upset. And I don't know if it's because we couldn't go UTO, couldn't go to the games. This one did not sting to me. The Minnesota last year, that hurt. The Minnesota Miracle, of course, was a gut punch. And we were sitting together weeping on each other's shoulders at the NFC Championship Rams game. This doesn't have that kind of sting to me at all. And I know a lot of the guys that we talk Saints with all day, every day, are really blue about this one because it's Drew Brees' goodbye. And we're going to get into why I'm not that upset about Drew Brees leaving. I mean, it's time for him to go. You really have to wonder, did we overstay our welcome here? And this is going to be a conversation that we're going to have deep today about overstaying your welcome. But to me, this playoff loss did not sting like the others. Jay, how you doing, my man? Bringing you on.
I'm good, man. I've recovered. I think of myself as the optimist. If you've listened to this show long enough, I hope that comes through. Maybe it comes through. And I think what I did going into this game against the Bucs all year, I kind of had the expectations that the Saints play well, especially after that Vegas game. I wasn't sure how far this team could go. I wouldn't have been surprised after that game if they didn't even make the playoffs. But I guess as the season went on, I started thinking with the expectations of, if everything goes right, perhaps this team can win the Super Bowl. But everything had to go exactly right. The main reason why, because you have an aging quarterback in Drew Brees, who is a shell of his former self. And I think, George, it hurts so bad for me because, number 9, I know he's somebody that, as much as we appreciate him now, we'll appreciate him a lot more when he's gone. And for him to have only won one Super Bowl, assuming that he's not coming back, and, I think that looks pretty sure at this point. I think just big picture, I think that's hard to stomach. You wish that, even going back, talking about the 4 years, but even beyond that, you think about the loss in Seattle, the loss on the Alex Smith bootleg, Vernon Davis touchdown in San Francisco, loss in Chicago the first year in 2006. Just so many opportunities. You see the stats of Tom Brady has won as many NFC championships as Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees, and you wish it could have been different, and you wish he could have won more Super Bowls. So I think that's why it hurts so much for Saints fans. That's why it hurts for me, because I think, you see, if you read between the lines, you understand how much Brees wanted it, how bad he wanted to get to another Super Bowl and win another Super Bowl. What he was playing through, a torn rotator cuff, playing through the ribs, the lungs, the foot, everything, so clearly he'll say that it was for his teammates, it was for the city, but that guy is a man with such pride, and that the most important position in all of sports, which is quarterbacks, isn't necessarily judged by completion percentage or touchdown passes, but it's Super Bowls won. Dan Marino, who's got some of the best stats of all time, there's always that, but he never won a Super Bowl. So I think that's why there's great heartache when it comes to this particular playoff loss, although the expectations realistically were not exactly to win a Super Bowl this year, but just sad that it's over.
Jay, a lot to digest there. And, I think it hurts Saints fans because everybody wanted a happy ending, right? And this was just a harsh reality check that every movie doesn't always have that storybook ending. You can't always have the John Elway send-off, the Peyton Manning send-off, where you go out a winner. It just and it's not going to be the case for Drew Brees either. And you just think a guy like him deserved it. He put in so much for the city. Obviously, all that's been said over the last 2 weeks, right? We would just be repeating everything. It can't be overstated what he's meant to the Saints, the city, much less this podcast. I mean, how much content has this guy just provided us, and entertainment has he provided us? So, but yeah, Jay, I mean, you talked about quarterbacks not getting the credit, and Tom Brady deserves all the credit that he's gotten for being a winner. But I do think there's some of the mainstream NFL media and just attributing quarterbacks' legacies to Super Bowl wins, that it is a team effort. And I guess, George, that's where I want to kick you off here, because that, to me, the reason this one hurts so much is because I was fully prepared to be beaten by playoff Tom Brady. But we didn't get beaten by playoff Tom Brady, did we?
Wait, yeah, okay. So you just said because we have a good team. We have a good team, Rob. The Saints have a great team. And then Jansen just said Drew Brees played with so much pride. Pride, okay, that's the word I want to highlight. He had a torn rotator cuff, ribs. He had cracked ribs. He couldn't throw the ball 15, 20 yards, okay? In our lifetime, have we ever seen a quarterback with a weaker arm? You could say Chad Pennington. You could say Peyton Manning that last Broncos year. And
yeah, when they won the Super Bowl.
Let me just go. So when Drew Brees went out there, he put so much emphasis on him winning that second Super Bowl, his own pride, that it was a detriment to the team. It was a detriment to the team because he wanted to win so badly that he put himself before the team. And you're going to say, George, easy for you to say. You're on your couch watching the game. But no one in that organization, in that locker room, is going to tell Drew that he needs to sit. But that is exactly what it should have happened the last year and a half, because we weren't winning because of Drew. We were winning despite Drew, which is just such a tragedy because he led us to all these regular season wins for all these years, and the defense let him down. And it's just a tragedy of all tragedies. At the end of his career, the exact opposite happened. So let's just say that, okay? I just don't think that was the right move for Drew Brees to go out there. And especially when Taysom Hill was not in the game. Taysom Hill was like a good sauce that you can put on noodles, and he'll cover a lot of the blemishes that Drew Brees has nowadays. But when Taysom's out, then Drew Brees is fully exposed, and it was just horrific, tragic to watch.
Okay, I think that's a little harsh. You can't argue with results here, George. I mean, we were winning with Drew Brees. Like, despite all those injuries, you're winning. So, as football coaches, yeah, you're not going to stand up to Brees because the results are still dictating he's playing winning football. And I don't like it how you didn't go where I wanted you to go when I teed you off there to say we didn't get beat by playoff Tom Brady. We got beat by ourselves and that Tampa Bay defense, unfortunately, and just some freaking flubs by a guy named Jared Cook. I mean, despite all of the turnovers in that game, you have an opportunity to go up 2 scores. You're moving the football. Look, it was very akin to the last couple of years, I would say, and even this season where yes, you had a slow start, albeit despite Deontay Harris's best efforts there in the first quarter. You had a sputtering start for the offense, which we're accustomed to, unfortunately. But we get into a rhythm there in the second half, and it's all squandered away with one play. I know that is, just putting a microscope on one play of a whole football game, but I just want to emphasize that's why this one hurts, because I was expecting to be beaten by Tom Brady, playoff Tom Brady, just join the long list of casualties. But that wasn't the case, and we could have beaten that team.
Rob, it's not – we did beat ourselves, and yet it's still binary. It's still black and white. Who lost? Drew Brees. Who won? Tom Brady. Yes, it's a team. Devin White played as well as a linebacker in our lifetime we've ever seen a linebacker play. Yes, but – did Tom Brady beat himself? No. Did Drew Brees beat himself? Yes. And we're going to look back in this whole Drew Brees golden era as, hey, it's been a fantastic regular season tenure. And he's broken records. It's been so much fun. We have had the best time of our Saints fanhood career in the regular season. And yet, come playoff time, we just have these tragedies year in and year out. And to me, it's just it epitomizes the Drew Brees career versus Tom Brady 2020 2-0. 2-0 in the playoffs, 0-1. We played 3 times. That's not a coincidence. That's the one time that we lost is in the playoffs versus Tom Brady. Just something happens to Matt Ryan to where in the playoffs, in the fourth quarter, he crumbles. Something happens to Tom Brady in the fourth quarter in the playoff, he wins. Say, George, why are you bringing up Matt Ryan? He's just a great example of somebody. If you look at Matt Ryan and Tom Brady, they're very similar quarterbacks, but there's something between the ears that when Tom Brady is in these pressure situations, he wins. Something happens
Clutch
to Drew Brees.
Playing Big Brother.
Yes.
Okay,
So,
can I chime in here? Can I chime in? Because I just feel like you're gonna paint this picture for all the Rons out there that they're gonna attribute these last 4 playoff losses like they were all because Drew Brees wasn't clutch enough. I'm pretty sure Drew Brees had nothing to do with the Minneapolis Miracle. Pretty sure Drew Brees had nothing to do with the Nolan no call. So I mean, these are gonna be just team losses, okay, when we can look back on them, and that's the way I want them to be pictured. And for that same reason, y'all talking about how clutch Tom Brady is. I would just like to say, for all of those blown opportunities and those unfortunate things that have happened to the Saints in the playoffs, look at the fortune that this guy has had. Take it back to 2011, the Tuck rule, which was no doubt a fumble. Everybody knows that was a fumble. And yet they go on, they beat Carolina in the Super Bowl. Make your own luck. Yeah, no, I think he made his own luck in the Super Bowl when he needed a game-winning drive, and John Casey for the Panthers kicks it out of bounds. They start at the 40. He only needs to move it a couple yards to get Vinatieri in range. You could go on later in this career that he is the Malcolm Butler interception. If the Falcons just decide to run the ball in the Super Bowl, this guy has the potential, just a couple. The David Tyree catch.
The Philly special. I have it all written down too. 2000 David Tyree.
The 2018 they beat them. That was a play that they beat them on. That was not lucky. Okay. What I'm saying is this guy has been incredibly fortunate and could be no better than a Joe Montana legacy, despite a couple plays and being part of. You have to give credit to this. One of the greatest coaching staffs. One of the greatest systems and staffs of players and coaches that they put together. Oh, by the way, caught cheating multiple times, got off without vacating any wins, and here they are. He goes through all this shit, comes out clean every time.
You sound like a conspiracy theorist on Reddit, Ron.
Oh, dude, no, I'm a realist. Look at some of these plays, man. I don't know what deal with the devil Tom Brady has made.
What did they do? What did they do this year? What did the Patriots do this year? What has Bruce Arians done? Tom Brady took a team that was crap that's all of a sudden in the Super Bowl.
What did Tom Brady do this year? He threw 3 picks in a row last weekend. And if the Packers score 3 touchdowns, what's the storyline?
There's
What's
something
the legacy
about him that can't be tangibly measured that he brings to an organization and a team. I think that's more what George is talking about. We're not talking about necessarily at this point in his career the statistics, but what he brings from a leadership standpoint to a team. Similar to we're in the season of basketball. Chris Paul hasn't won a championship, but he elevates a team like the Thunder that everybody predicted to have less than 20 wins last year, to the playoffs because he's such a good leader, and I think teams rally around that. When we have 12 on our team, we're just going to win. It may not be pretty, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to get to the Super Bowl, and it doesn't matter who this Mahomes guy is, but we got a chance.
I think the point is, Jay, that I got a hot take here, and I'm already sour over the end of the Drew Brees era here and this Saints prime era. And I'll just reemphasize, what is the narrative this week if the Packers take advantage of those 3 interceptions in a row by Brady? And I know one of them was a tipped ball, but the other 2 were god-awful. And if that's Brees making those throws, we're crucifying him. Okay, everybody's saying, oh, he doesn't have the arm to make that throw. What's he doing? So it's just this guy. I will not deny what you said. He has an intangible, I guess it is tangible, effect on an entire organization when he comes in. He changes the culture. And you see that in business. There are those leaders that they can influence everybody. And he is that. I got to give him that. But I just wanted to get it out there that despite, if there were a few plays in his career that go the other way, his legacy is completely different. So, okay. I think we've belabored the Tampa Bay loss, and we've obviously talked a good bit about Brees moving on, okay? But, George, you hit on it there, and I think it's just fair to go to the first fan question here because it's right on the topic that you were getting on. And it's Chris Johnson. And he's saying, and hey, for all the listeners that missed this, okay, let's just give it context here. Brittany Breeze comes out on Instagram. Tell me if you've heard this one before. Drew Brees was playing through an injury all year that you didn't know about, you never heard about, never showed up on an injury report. And shockingly, it wasn't Underhill that broke it this time. But yeah, Brittany comes out saying not only was he playing through the ribs and the lung injury, and she gave a little more detail to the injury Underhill exposed with the shoulder, torn rotator cuff. Yeah. Now you hear, and he tore his plantar fascia. So, I mean, at that point, Chris is asking, if you got those kind of injuries, it's affecting your performance, should he have just stepped down and admitted that he's putting us at a greater disadvantage by playing?
Yeah. I mean, I said it earlier. His pride became a detriment. A quarterback without a working rotator cuff, sorry, that was a tongue twister, is like a car without a motor. I mean, how can he push the ball down the field? Mike Thomas came out and tweeted that it's easy to guard him because they know he's only going to go short routes. And yeah, Mike Thomas shouldn't have tweeted that because it makes the team look bad, but it's so true. No need to say it, Mike. Drew, we know you're tough. We know you wanted it. And just to dress out and say, I'm ready to give you what I got is such a credit to his character to still dress out and play in the NFL. I'm saying all this stuff. I've never taken these hits. I'm nothing compared to that. My point is, though, no, he shouldn't have been playing all the snaps. He can give you what he could maybe give you a few snaps in some situations, but he should not be taking every snap given those injuries. It is a huge detriment to the team. This team is so good. The golden era is not over. I mean, Jansen said it numerously. We've been 8-1 the past 2 years when Drew Brees is out. So everyone wants to give credit to, we're winning because of Drew. No, this is a damn good team, and a team that can still contend. The golden era is not over because of the quarterback. So, hey, if it's Jameis, if it's Taysom, if it's Stafford, and we'll get into that down the road in this podcast, I still see our future as bright because we were winning with this pseudo broken quarterback.
Okay, Jay, I want to get your opinion on this because I want your honest opinion. George, you sound like you're a little ideal world here. Jay, honestly, do you think that we had a better chance of winning 2 weeks ago with Jameis or Taysom Hill starting?
I mean, it's hard to say we would have less of a chance. Hard for me to. I know I'm teetering the line. I'm not giving you a defined answer here, but it's just tough, man. When it's clear every time when the guy gets moved off his spot that he's going to throw it in the dirt or throw an interception like his first pick. But what about Jameis? How much can you trust that guy in his limited time against San Francisco? He looks so scared to make a mistake that he airmails a couple, looked pretty erratic. Taysom was out that game. I think you missed Taysom a lot there. But it's a good question, and it's a good debate for people like us to talk about, with Breeze having all the injuries. But, I think this franchise, this is clearly the golden era of this franchise the last 15 years. And who is going to tell that guy that he can't start? And Ron, to your point, I mean, the Saints in the second half go right down, they score. Jared Cook catches the ball on the 45-yard line and carries it like he's carried it the last 2 years as New Orleans Saint, like a freaking loaf of bread. Why aren't we jumping on ball security with this guy? Every time he catches the ball, I'm like, hold on to the damn football. God darn it. And then you just knew. It wasn't even like a Peanut Tillman classic punch out. It was just like guy gets stripped so freaking easily. And you just had a feeling that was the game right there. So, the Saints score 3 right there. They're up 2 possessions, and it's a totally different football game. And who knows what would have happened in Green Bay. So I don't disagree with the thought process of starting Drew Brees in that game. But I do find it interesting that even at this point, as limited as Brees is, Loomis comes out with the quote, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, that says, we're waiting for Brees to make his final decision. And that might just be a formality and respect. They know what he's going to do. But, it's clear to me that it's time for Brees to hang it up. And I think he will. And I don't know what you do, but I'm sick of players coming out after the season saying, I had 0 catches, but I played through this and this. Mike Thomas, or, I run slants because my quarterback can only throw 15 yards. That sounds like a me guy to me, Mike Thomas. I'm not surprised that there's another me guy number 1 receiver, but please shut up. Like no excuses. Just go out there and ball like you did the first couple years. I don't want to hear about it. Like you got to answer everybody on Twitter. And Brittany Breeze coming out and saying he played through all this. Look, we know the guy's hurting. We know he's been beat up. He's 41 years old. I don't know what you do. I don't know if you can't talk about it beforehand, but just to be so blatant, it's like she had the Instagram queued up before the game even started that this is the excuse. He played through this and this. I don't know. It's been a great era.
Jay,
It's time for the next guy. And I'm with George. The Saints have a really good team. I'm not dialed in on exactly what our cap situation is. I know we have a lot of good players that we drafted in that great draft 3 or 4 years ago, including Ramrod, Lattimore, all those guys that we need to re-sign. But I'm excited about the prospects of who the next guy is going to be. And as I've said plenty of times on this show, I've got full faith in this front office that if they don't go get a guy like Stafford, that they must feel pretty comfortable in Jameis or Taysom. But I'm also excited about the draft prospects too. I guess switching gears here, I don't know. I guess I'm slighted towards like the all-in right now short window, getting a quarterback at 32 in his twilight and trying to win right now. I kind of like the Josh Allen Mahomes approach. Yeah, it's harder to get a guy like that. But I can see Payton working with a guy like Mac Jones and building that way, which I would be fine for. Maybe I'm comfortable. I just want to go back to that underdog role and not have this feeling grim and dread every time we're not up 2 possessions in the second half in a playoff game.
That's the only way Boogie can feel comfortable, huh? But Jay, no, you made a great point about Thomas. Like, I think you said it earlier in the week. Like, where's the mute button on this guy? He just doesn't know when. Hey, you don't have anything good to say. Don't say anything at all. What the guy played whopping 4 games this year. Like, okay, hey, Breeze is out there playing and winning ball games for us. What the hell are you doing on the sidelines if you're so damn tough? And here he is getting ankle surgery at the end of the year. So, like, it's not like he was, anywhere close to his top self either. So you don't get to say those things. Those terrible for team chemistry. And look, we've said this before. I would not be surprised if the dude talks his way off the team here in a year or two. Heck, maybe even this offseason, George. Fan question from Bird: would you trade Mike Thomas for Deshaun Watson?
Oh yeah, I would. I don't think the Houston Texans would.
No, because let me put some context to that, because I'm hearing on freaking national radio today that, Panthers could be a great fit. They'll give him Christian McCaffrey and about 3 or 4 first-round picks. I was like, what the heck are these values? So yeah, I agree with you, but go on.
I don't think that's crazy.
It just sounds crazy to me, but George, go on. Let's transition into quarterbacks on the market, right?
Okay, well, Matt Stafford would make us content right off the bat. He would put up peak Drew Brees numbers, 5,000 yards immediately. He and Sean Payton would be Kobe and Shaq. We wouldn't miss Drew Brees for a second with Matt Stafford. Here's the issue. We're in salary cap Hades because for so long, Loomis has laugh now, cry later with our salary caps, and now we're going to pay the piper. The thing is, can he just keep extending it? Keep pushing it back. I don't know. I mean, Loomis always finds a way to do these little miracles in order to make it work. So if we can find a way, he pulls off another monopoly miracle to pay Stafford, then by all means, I'll take Stafford. I just don't think we have the money to pay him. So you're going to have to look at a guy who's affordable. Jameis Winston is a guy who's affordable, and then you can keep the band together. You might have to say for a year, clickbait, Jameis, whoever proves to you the most in the offseason is going to be the quarterback. That's kind of how I see it. We can't afford Watson. These big names out there, we just don't have the money for right now unless Loomis can pull off a miracle.
Well, I don't even know if I like talking like that because, let's be honest, the three of us have no idea how Mickey Loomis does his job. And by all accounts, it's not even Mickey Loomis. It's the guy under him that is really the wizard of shifting. What's his name, Jay?
Kai Harley, Terry Fontenot. He's got a lot of respect in that front office. He's been the money guy for years. That's who they really trust. Terry Fontenot, who recently got hired by the Falcons, was trying to get him over there.
Thanks for that compensatory 3rd-round pick. Shout out. But yeah, so I mean, I'm going to try to sound smart here and just say, George, they're just going to move a bunch of base salary to signing bonus, and they're going to figure it out. Do I think they're going to be able to pay a quarterback $30 million? No, but they're certainly going to figure it out. My concern, Jay, if you got an opinion on this, is Stafford, just to me, I don't know that he's 32. And to put that into perspective, somebody did it very well. He's the same age as Drew Brees was when we had that amazing 2011 season. So he's got a lot of good years in front of him, assuming he's taking care of himself, which is my concern. The guy is tough as nails, but he has gotten hit. He has played through a lot of injuries, and he just doesn't strike me as the guy who takes the best care of his body. You never hear that about him, like, oh, he's big into diet and fitness in the offseason. He just still seems like the UGA frat boy that's eating Five Guys in downtown Athens. Am I right, Jay?
No.
Oh, man. He doesn't get the he's a blue-collar type guy, and I think maybe I'm saying that because he's been the quarterback in Detroit and has taken so many hits over the years. But he's certainly not a guy that's been marketed as the guy that's eating avocado ice cream so he can play till he's 56 years old. But with that said, he definitely has some really good years ahead of him. How many? Does he have 2, 3, 7, 8? I don't know. But with that said, George and I were talking about it the other day. He went to Detroit. How many times did they make the playoffs, let alone how many playoff wins did he have? George's counterpoint will be that he had terrible teams around him. They were 2-14, 3-13 before he got there, 8-8, 7-9 perennially after he got there. But if you're that much of a difference maker, that much of a winner, that much of an it guy, Florio wrote about him, which I hadn't really heard, that if you get Stafford, you need to make sure that you got good leaders all over the place because, while he's a gunslinger, he's not necessarily that guy like Breeze or Brady or Rodgers that's going to lift everybody up in that way. And I thought that was a little harsh coming from Florio. He seems like a likable guy that guys want to play hard for just by how he carries himself by example. But I guess my question would be, at 32 years old, how many examples like him do we have to point to in the NFL's past where they haven't been successful? They've been on bad teams. They've been 8-8, 7-9, and then he goes to a good team, and all of a sudden they're, competing for Super Bowls. There's not a lot, but I guess Payton and Loomis aren't looking at it that way. They're probably looking at it more from a personnel standpoint that, look, if we match this guy up with Deontay Harris, Mike Thomas, our offensive line, our running game, there's no excuse for us not to compete for Super Bowls every year.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you a name, Jay, when you first said that. Jeff Garcia, maybe. I know they're totally different quarterbacks, but just felt like Jeff Garcia had that knack of if he got on the right team, they were playoff contenders. So, I mean, yeah, everybody says the system's the right fit. I don't know. What do you think, George? Who's your odds-on favorite to be the quarterback? The $1 million question this offseason.
To me, it's Jameis. And you say like it's so easy just for Loomis to wave his Harry Potter wand and make the finances happen. This is really, I mean, look at it. Look at it. Go pull up our contracts next year. It's a bloody mess. I don't see how we make it happen. I know Loomis does it repeatedly, but this is the biggest square into a triangle he's ever had. Stafford would be the ideal fit. He would throw for 5,000 yards, but to add more money to the salary cap that's already deep in Hades, I don't see it happening. Also, you have clickbait. Does a quarterback want to come to this team? Is he going to have to sit out 1 out of 10 plays so clickbait can come in? Or do you want to go to a team like the Colts that can pay you and you're going to take 100% of the snaps? They have a good defense. They have money to throw another wide receiver. They have good running backs. That is a team, if you're Stafford, you might be a little bit more interested in. Okay, you have Rob, you have these character concerns with Stafford that I don't share, but we don't need him to be Jesus. We have Demario Davis. We have Craig Robertson. We have Armstead, Ramrod. We have a fine locker room. He doesn't need to come 180 the locker room. He just needs to throw the ball downfield because we haven't had that in 2.5 years.
Hey, wait, I love that you just dropped junkyard dog Craig Robertson before I did because I had plans of dropping him on this podcast. So wait, Bird, and I think you're tying into it, so I'm going to just assume that this is your answer, but Bird's asking who's the most important unrestricted free agent we got this offseason. So I would assume you're going to say Jameis Winston so that we have some quarterback security. But yes, I was going to bring up a name like locker room gorilla glue, junkyard dog Craig Robertson has very likely the potential of not being a Saint this upcoming year. What does that mean for this special teams unit? I would say, George, the other big name that's on that unrestricted free agent list is a guy we talked about a lot 2 weeks ago, T-Rex, Trey Hendrickson. Unrestricted free agent. What do you do with a guy like this that out of nowhere is second in the league in sacks? I would say not out of nowhere, but pretty much out of nowhere. And is that worth giving him pass rush specialist money? Or do you do something like the Godfather in our group me suggested, franchise tag him which I'm going to be humble and totally admit I know that pays him top 5 average salary at that position, but I don't know what that means for our cap. Like, okay, let's assume that's $20 million. Does that mean we owe him $20 million on the books in that year, or is that some kind of cap relief? I don't know.
You know, you do such a good job of hosting the show. You don't really get to often to answer the question. So you kind of just did, but what would you do? Let me just say this. With T-Rex, he is one of those guys that makes being a Saints fan fun. I love the guy. He's just a little engine that could. So to me, of course, I say find a way. However, there's a little bit of Lynn sanity. Remember Jeremy Lin for the Knicks? He went nuts that 1 year. And I remember thinking to myself, if I was the New York Knicks general manager, I would trade him while his stock is so high because he's really not that good. So we don't have that luxury of trading T-Rex while his stock is inflated. However, I do think his stats last year are a bit better than the guy's actual talent. But I want you to answer this question because you don't often get to answer the question because you're the question asker.
Well, okay, and I appreciate that, and I'm prepared with my answer. And yes, it's anticlimactic. I think it is Jameis Winston for obvious reasons. You're going to be able to get him at the value you need him at, and you've already had a year with him working. So I think it makes perfect sense that it's Jameis Winston as your quarterback in 2021. But I will offer you a low-key underdog here, dark horse. James Hurst came in for Teron Armstead multiple times this year. Does that sound surprising? Like every year we got to have a backup for Teron Armstead, who is only getting a year older, and those injuries are only wearing on him a little bit more. And his rap career might be taking off, and he might be thinking, I don't need football anymore. So I'm just going to throw that one out there for you too. Backup left tackle James Hurst, unrestricted free agent. So, okay, flip the coin, George. My brother from another mother, Barrios here. Who's the biggest name that's going to be the cap casualty in 2021? Because we all know the situation as the media describes it.
So, two names for you, and this one's just a bit of a bear with me. So, Dan Campbell is now the head coach of the Detroit Lions. He's been on the coaching staff of the Saints the past X number of years. He's been in our locker room, and if he's going to trade Stafford, he might say, I'd like to handpick some guys that can come to the Detroit Lions and change our culture around. And maybe he'll say, look, y'all can't afford Stafford, but maybe if you give us Cam Jordan and a draft pick, then you could make it work in your books. And I, Dan Campbell, can rebuild this franchise, rebuild this culture. I want to be tough. So maybe to make the trade work, you trade Cam Jordan and a draft pick. Hey, how can you trade Cam Jordan? He's so good. Guys, we've gotten so much value out of him the past 9 years. He's 31, coming off an off year. Maybe you trade him before he starts to really age and not produce like he used to. I know he's a great guy in the locker room, a great guy for the franchise and the culture of the city. But maybe you're looking at him kind of going off into the sunset, so to speak, in his career. So that's a name you could look at to maybe trade for Matt Stafford, Cam Jordan. Now, Rob, another name to make it work, to get under the cap. I know this whole offseason we're going to keep talking about it because, not everything is Skittles and rainbows. Something with the Saints isn't pleasant to talk about. And right now our cap room is an icky situation. But Mike Thomas, $20 million. Oh, I mean, he really didn't give us much last year. His Twitter is becoming an issue. His personality, getting in a fight, yelling at Sean Payton allegedly. Do you really want to pay a wide receiver that kind of money in the post-Drew Brees era? A guy who might be a bit detrimental off the field? Maybe you move on for Mike Thomas. There might be a team out there like the Jacksonville Jaguars who'd be willing to give you a king's fortune for a guy like that. So those are two names I'd say to answer Barry Allis's question.
He wishes he was Mike Tyson after Chauncey hit him with that punch.
Dynamite drop in. Yeah, I mean, that would just be such a blessing. I hate to say this, like coming off of the record-setting year. I mean, we were like, wow, $100 million, it was all worth it. Look at this guy's performance. Oh, by the way, the same quarterback that he was throwing under the bus, he's the guy that made him slant boy. He gave him all those underneath receptions. So okay, but George, I mean, that would be an absolute gift if Urban Meyer had a soft spot for a Buckeye and wanted to take on that contract. That would be such a gift, I think, because yes, I think we are a little bit stuck. If I recall, I think we got to at least wait 1, maybe 2 more years before we have an easy out of that contract. But yeah, that's a weird one for me. I love the creative thinking on Cam Jordan as much as we love the guy. And look, I'll defend him a little bit because yeah, the sack numbers were down. Maybe you say, well, Trey Hendrickson came on and Cam Jordan's never really had to compete with another guy across the line, but Cam Jordan still makes a lot of plays that go unnoticed. He is 100% disciplined and contained, and he really saves a lot of big plays from the defensive end position. But I got to throw this guy's name out there, George, just because if we're talking about performance and value, I am 100% bringing Andrew Speed to the table for a tough conversation. It was incredibly controversial that we even gave him that long-term deal. Fans didn't understand it. Analysts didn't understand it. You got to sit that guy down and tell him, look, man, my bad. You're not worth that. I mean, am I wrong there?
Ron, I am Andrew Pete's most constructive critic. So I couldn't agree with you more. I would very happily roll with Mickey Houston. That was Mickey Loomis always wanting to prove that his draft picks pan out. And so he felt obligated. He put his pride and ego up and he re-signed Pete. And to me, we're going to be scratching our heads for years because of that. But that's the obvious answer. You're right about that. And what you just said about Cam is exactly the reason why a guy like Dan Campbell would want to trade for him, because he does all the right things, because he has such a high motor. But he's played every snap for the past 3-4 years. Well,
longer than that.
It's a lot of wear and tear on those tires. So Dan Campbell, because of everything you just said, might trade Stafford for a guy like that. Another name that, if you look at the books, would be maybe an obvious answer, Teron Armstead. But I just love where he is in his career. He's just like the aged, fine wine. And he's just in a great spot in his career. Yeah, he's kind of old, but he's just so good. He's like Jason Peters that just keeps coming back every year and just shutting down DNs. And I'd be very nervous if we have to roll with Jameis Winston without Teron Armstead. So I'd find, of course, adios, Pete, but you got to find a way to keep Armstead on that team.
George, I think you just love where he's at in his rap career. You got BOA just banging in the locker room after wins. So I think that's influencing your opinion just a little bit. Let's be honest here, all right? Look, I know we touched on this this guy that will go down in Saints infamy, but I got to give love to Hunter Yancey Thigpen here. Tight end for 2021, if we're looking ahead at the future. Hey, tell me if you've heard this before. He's done with Jared Cook. So do you see the Saints drafting a guy? Do you see us bringing in another free agent like we did Ben Watson, like we did Jared Cook himself? Or is it officially Trout season?
Oh, you stole my pun. Everybody, let's get our fishing poles out there. Let's hop on Captain Boogie's boat. We're going fishing. Trout season 2021. Fantasy sleeper. I mean, Troutman looked good. Troutman's the man. You have Josh Hill to be your blocker and the guy to be your utilitarian tight end. You can maybe draft a guy like Alize Mack to be a late round tight end option. But no, to me, I'm very comfortable going all in on Troutman. We really liked his progress over the course of the year. What more could you want out of a young tight end? Troutman's a guy, fantasy football 2021. High expectations.
LOL of that Alize Mack name drop, man. Somebody to get the camp articles and headlines going. A little bit of clickbait action.
Ron, and I just did want to say one thing. And I spent a lot of this episode maybe resenting Drew Brees for putting himself out there this past game. And, that's harsh, okay? I do think it's a team game, so he probably was a detriment. However, we do need to give him an ode. Maybe we'll dedicate an entire episode. I mean, he took us out of the dark ages, and for that, we'll always be grateful for Drew Brees. It was fantastically fun. I don't know if you have a memory that comes to the top of your mind. I just having a potent offense for all these years has just been fantastic every Sunday. So we will miss him, but I love this what's next tenure because I still am very optimistic about this team. There are so many great players around this team that I am excited to build off of, and the golden era is not over just because Breeze is a gone pecan.
Oh, I mean, 100%. That should be the message that rings true on this podcast is that the future is bright. The nucleus is still there to build a winner. And, the right quarterback comes in. This is instantly a Super Bowl team. And there's no denying that. And Loomis has that attitude too. He's publicly come out and said that. But George, I love the idea of a future podcast just highlighting the wonderful memories that have shaped our young lives. I will go that far to say from Drew Brees. I mean, yeah, obviously the 2006 season was just, it was like, losing your virginity in terms of Saints winning football. You go to the NFC Championship for the first time ever. That's obviously always going to hold a special place. But no, look, we've done too much criticism, in my opinion, of Drew Brees squandering these last 4 years. And I think that's come true in my takes on this podcast. But I just have to go back to Super Bowl 44. I mean, that was Brees then. So let's not forget that. And I will never forget that. I said to myself, leaving Sun Life Stadium that night, February 7th, 2010, I said, the Saints just won the Super Bowl. They could lose every game for the rest of my life. I'll always be able to find joy in that memory right then and there with my dad. So, George, let's sign off. Just for bookkeeping, y'all, Jay had to drop off. So, George, why don't you give the people some final thoughts? We'll close this one. But, hey, fans, Rons, no, Pro Saints Talk is back, baby. So we're going to be getting all these regular offseason podcasts, getting you charged up and ready for the future of Saints football. George, what you got for the people?
You guys, we appreciate it. We're back. We love you. And we'll definitely do – I think our quarterback situation is going to get ironed out pretty soon. So it's going to be very fun. We'll keep recording podcasts as it appears who our next quarterback is going to be. And that'll really dictate the direction this team is going. Because is it going to be a team where Sean Payton is going to be like, hey, I'm Sean Payton and I throw the football. And I'm going to get a quarterback that's going to do down the field, like a Ryan Fitzpatrick. Or am I just going to say, hey, I have Murray. I have Alvin Kamara. I have this strong offensive line. I have this phenomenal defense. I don't need a quarterback that's going to play hero ball. I can just go with a very conservative quarterback that'll win me a game without losing it. That is just one of these components of this offseason that's going to make it much more fascinating than usual. So, hey, Pro Saints Talk is here over the course of the offseason. Guys, we love you. Send us your questions. I know you wanted hey, we're going to the Super Bowl podcast. But, guys, that's not how life is, especially 2021. Not everything is Skittles and rainbows, like we said earlier. And, Ron, what you just said about Drew Brees, we could lose forever. I went to that game with my dad. That gave me chills. That's so spot on. I hate to badmouth Drew Brees to Rob, who's such a homer. He thinks the Mississippi River is the biggest river on the planet. But, I share the love for him. And but I share the
like
love.
It's not?
But, dude, I share the love for, the rest of the team, too. These guys want to win their own Super Bowl, too. So that's another thing. It's more than just Drew Brees. There's guys like Teron Armstead and Ramrod who ought to have the opportunity to hoist it up themselves because they're damn good as well. But, guys, that's all I got for you. We were going to do some I Fly Away as the song to, like a funeral song for Drew Brees. But I think, Ron, we got to go Teron Armstead. We got to play some Teron Armstead for the fans. Let the world showcase to the world what our boy can bring to the table other than just shutting down the J.J. Watts of the world. But, guys, we love you. We love you. We love you. We're out.
Wait. I just have to say, I'm such a big homer. I got to shout out to Baldwin. I think that the Port of New Orleans is the biggest port on the river. Where you at, Balls? Look, closing the book on the Drew Brees chapter of Saints football, pro Saints talk. We out here, baby.
Leading my people like Harriet. I'm sitting in the front like I'm Rose. I'm catching big balls while I'm chilling. I walk in the building, my feet on the sofa. Big step with my troops, salute to my soldiers. Got power, they treat me like Yoda. Got my boots on the ground with his action. Really stick to the streets like it's traction. On my mama a crew with my taxes. Big suits in the Benz make it happen.